what is the strategy right now in terms of growth, and how are we choosing to grow? Are we investing in the team that we have, or are we choosing to add to our team? And also, what role does technology play in that process? Maybe Rick, you can walk us through that first.
So how many, just to tailor the answer to you guys, like how many of you are credit unions? Okay. How many of you are commercial banks, community banks? Okay. Yeah. See, that makes a big difference. And then how many of you are just non-depository mortgage banks? All right. So there's fewer of those than there are community banks. That's incredible. This is why I love New England, because it's such a mix, a healthy mix between the channels. And you don't see that anywhere else in the country. It's fascinating. Any brokers? Any non-delegated correspondent brokers? Anyone? That's great. So it's phenomenal. You're in New Hampshire, right? Yeah, I know you. You guys are killing it. So in some ways, you see trends between companies that are growing and those that sort of plateau, and we've seen that sort of in New England, where I call it the ditch, where you get companies that are really healthy in their backyard, but really struggle kind of growing outside of their backyard or outside of their sort of local micro market, and that's where most companies kind of reside. Like I did a post not too long on LinkedIn where I looked at every non-depository, and I didn't include the community banks or credit unions because for just sort of a variety of reasons, because of the way you get leads, and sometimes it's more captive and these types of things. But there was only if you added the non-depository or the depository, there's only about 300 lenders in the country that do over $1 billion a year in business. It's a really small cohort. And if you take out the banks and community banks, there's about 180 non-depository lenders, including brokers, mortgage banks, that do over $1 billion a year. So it's a really, really small cohort of lenders. And of those 183, about 27 of those are connected to UWM through non-delegated correspondent channels, where they're underwriting it, closing it, funding it in their name, but it's all done by leveraging UWM's technology. It's a genius strategy. So how do you compete with that? And quite frankly, it's not easy, right? I know, like with us at NFM out of Baltimore, we're a 49 state lender. And it's a bloodbath. And we always lead with technology because we've made some pretty serious investments in AI, that actually are helping our loan officers close more loans. I did another analysis of the top maybe 30 lenders. And we close more loans on a per loan officer basis per month than any other top 30 lender in the country. Right. And it's purely because of our cost of originate is really low. Our investments in AI and technology are very, very serious and advanced, and it's actually yielding results for loan officers to close more loans on a monthly basis. So we do lean really, really heavy and forward on the AI front for sure.
Yep. No, that's great, Mickey. I know you've just moved over to Megastar, and you're getting your feet wet, I'm sure. And what insights do you have around the strategy that you hope to bring to Megastar?
So I feel that growth is something that you've always got to have a focus on. But what kind of growth? Is it the growth that we're just going to keep recruiting the same loan officers from, company A to company B? Or is it growth? And you do have to do that because we've got people who are aging out in the industry and retiring. We just had a gentleman at Megastar who's been there 25 years, and he's retiring at age 75. And so that's a great thing, but we need new blood, and we need to be able to, bring staff in. But the other part about growth is it doesn't have to necessarily be based on headcount. So I love helping loan officers who are looking for new ways to grow their production and find more referral partners, maybe tackle a new product, maybe, as a lender, bringing our own lender funded buy down for a 1-year buy down. Anything like that can also, incentivize your growth. So I think first off, don't just think of it as I've got to build production with new loan officers, because that's expensive. It takes time and they don't always stick. And so, you're always in this gerbil wheel of growth that's recruiting, retention. And that's okay. I mean, you should be focused on retention. I'll share share something that I had a growth coach coached me on several years ago. And that is the same effort that you're making when you're recruiting them. You need to also deliver that once they actually join your team. Otherwise, it's a little bit of a bait and switch. So make sure that whatever you're telling them that you're doing, that you do deliver that. So for example, if I'm sending a book or a podcast to somebody, I need to do the same thing to somebody on my team. So I look at growth a little bit differently. And that is, yes, recruiting's important and retention is important, but also pouring in and serving those people who've trusted you with their career and with their livelihoods and their referral network to make sure that you can, have them at the top of their game with the best technology, with access to the database. I also think servicing is important, and I'm going to be on another panel in about another hour talking about servicing. And so that's another form of growth to help your loan officers become lenders for life and be that person that they hope to be able to stay sticky with and continue to do loan after loan after loan for that same borrower.
Yeah, I think you hit on something kind of interesting there, which is sort of that tension between where is your primary focus, right? Is is it on capturing the next originator, or recruiting, capturing new talent, or kind of investing on with the team that you have in place, which is kind of similar to the build versus buy conversation when it comes to technology too, right? Do you go out there and buy, quote unquote, buy new talent for your origination staff, or do you build or invest in the talent that you have? Jim, where does assurance fall in that spectrum?
Yeah, and not to be a broken record, even the session before us, I think the comments are all very similar, is that you have to be recruiting your current people every day. Mm-hmm. And once you, as a company, just get so locked in on new recruiting and growing and all that, these people that have been with you 5, 10, 15 years start to kind of roll their eyes and say, well, what about me? Yeah. Some of them like it. They like to see a company's growing, but some of them sit back and say, okay, all these guys care about is growing. So you have to make sure that you're doing that. I always said that my goal as a leader and our team is to make the company so good that nobody wants to leave there, and it's so good that people want to come work there. Mm-hmm. And if you could get that message out into the market, then you're winning. And I think that's a lot of it, communication with the internal team and the external team. I mean, we've done a lot of winning and recruiting, and because our marketing director is very good about PR, I can't tell you how many people, not only in settings like this, but at church or anywhere, like, oh man, you guys are really doing well. There is that sort of contagious energy that people see that, and then they come up and say, hey, what's going on? Or maybe is that something I'm interested in? But also echoing the previous panel and the comments here is that it's relationship and it's authenticity. There is, through my career, I've had dialers that dial and dial and dial, and, not to say that they don't ever succeed, but the biggest wins have come when you've gotten to know somebody. It may take you 6 or 12 months to recruit somebody, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. The person that takes a phone call and a week later is working for you, you kind of have to ask yourself, that's all they wanted. They didn't have any more diligence. I mean, they didn't really authentically know you. So getting people face to face, spending 2-3 weeks. I also encourage any recruit to pick up a phone, go to our website and pick up anybody in the company and call them. And I'm not going to warn them. And you can only do that if you're confident in what your company is. Yep. Like, I'm not going to warn a branch manager in Florida that you're going to be calling. Pick anybody, and I'm confident that they'll say, I love the company and this is why I love it. So it's a risk, but it's something that I always encourage people to do.
Wow, that's really interesting. So we talk a little bit about recruiting, and again, we're really talking about growth and sales strategy. And the other aspect of it is the competitive landscape, and where does a lender see themselves within the competitive landscape, and how do they see themselves differentiating themselves in the competitive landscape? You've got a lot of big brands that are out there. We all know the names, but the mortgage origination industry is highly decentralized compared to a lot of other industries that are out there. So when we're thinking about, you call it big versus boutique, or just the competitive differentiation for a given lender, how are you seeing NFM fit into that, Rick?
So it is interesting because the older, at least the older I get in this business, and I see a lot of familiar faces. I see Jim. Jim, you've been around forever. Like we've been in this business you've been here longer than I have, but I will tell you, we've ridden the last probably 25, 30 years, almost closely aligned here in New England. Sometimes I look at young guys in this business and I was like, I started in this business looking like you, full head of hair, not a gray in my head. And I'm ending it with, looking like this guy here, like no hair, and, so you see,
this guy looks great, by the way.
You look great. And you look great, but but you see the competitive shift, and it's really dramatic to see these movements. I mean, Mortgage Master used to be the king of New England. Right. And then Loan Depot did a really smart strategic move to say like, look, instead of like building branch, and Shane's probably here somewhere, they did an amazing job in acquiring a legacy brand that was already entrenched firmly in New England. Cross Country did something very similar, not by acquisition, but by bringing on some really large organizations that now are doing $2-3 billion a year just in the Boston market. So it's really fascinating. And we have a brand called Main Street, which is based in Virginia. And that division does about $2.5 billion a year, but they're primarily here in Rhode Island and kind of snaking up toward Foxborough and up toward Boston. So I think like growing has to be done. It's really tough to do that, like branch by branch, loan officer by loan officer. That is a strategy, but it's really tough to make meaningful market share differences in local markets. So if you're going into a brand new market, partnering with the right point of entry is critical because that wrong individual you partner with, you bring on as a P&L branch or branch, could really be devastating for future hires in that same market. So I think being extremely judicious in who you hire in new markets is vital. And we do a lot of discernment and like saying like if we're going to go in New Hampshire, we're going to know who the right like reputable loan officers are going to be, and we're going to try to really go after those folks, knowing that getting others will be easier.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And Mickey, for Megastar, as you're getting more involved, how are you thinking about Megastar's position, as a competitive differentiator within the competitive landscape?
So this is my third week. And I've been drinking water through the fire hose, and
congratulations!
And it tastes good though. It's good water. And so, to your point, I just wanted to say what you just said about going into a new market, and because Megastar, I'm a Southern girl, in case you can't tell, and so I've been in the Southeast, and that's where the bulk of my sphere of influence is. So they haven't had a brand really in the Southeast. They're very well positioned where they are in Colorado and Mountain West, and so as I'm hiring people now, you've got to be very mindful at kind of what Rick said of, you get one chance to be sometimes that, first impression. So be slow to hire. Sometimes the hire you don't make is the best hire, right? Because you just want to make sure they align with you culturally and that they're hiring, the right type of people. But as far as Megastar goes, so one of the things that I feel like is a differentiator is our CEO is Anita Padilla Fitzgerald. She started in the mortgage industry as a receptionist and worked her way up. So she's worked in all facets, and she really knows the industry and the mortgage cycle, and has created an end-to-end solution. So 4 or 5 years ago, she actually developed her own technology stack. And a lot of people are looking at doing that today. Do I buy versus build, or do I do some plugins? But I think having our own technology with one central database is called Loan Maps. So the loan officer can just get in there, see all their tasks for the day. It's the point of sale, the LOS, the CRM, and then it's also embedded a lot of the technology that the GACs offer. So, for example, we have the Fannie Mae income calculator embedded, and I think it is the only LOS with that embedded. And we do use a lot of the technology. We believe in day one certainty. We want those verifications because that's a better manufactured and quality loan. And if a loan officer will do some of those parts at the beginning, it's going to make that loan only maybe a 1 or 2 touch, and it's going to be a better quality loan and we like to service our loans as well. So I think that is something that is sort of setting her apart right now and setting Megastar up is our end-to-end technology, which keeps our cost to originate very, very low. In fact, Stratmore last year, I believe she had the lowest cost to originate at Megastar. So really it's just building on the basics, and having a new market to power into. And, I believe that technology is very important to loan officers today, and also to companies, because having the tech, keeping your costs down, is really important. And then the next thing I would say is just making sure you have the right products. I talk to loan officers every day, and they're doing every loan you can imagine. They may close 5 loans, 6 loans in a month, and they maybe have done a reverse, a HELOC, a DSCR, and it's not just straight Fannie Freddie anymore. So make sure, as part of your growth plan, that you are giving your team every tool that they need in the toolbox to succeed. Because the last thing they want to do is take that borrower and hand it off to somebody, I'm sorry to say, at a community bank or credit union who may have a portfolio product, because they run the risk of that realtor working with that loan officer. And so they don't want to give their customers away. So anyway, make sure you've got the right product mix for your team as well.
Yeah, that's great. And so, we've talked a little bit about, finding the right people for a given market. We talked a little bit about technology, product stack. Jim, I know we had talked about before also the experience. So, being able to provide more of a, tailored boutique experience for, an end consumer. How do you see Assurance Financial, fitting into that?
Yeah. So my background is I was a warehouse lender, and then one of my clients, after many years, said, can kind of come over and help them finance, became the president CFO of an IMB. Ultimately, we were acquired by a big IMB. And so when I left there, I'm back to a smaller IMB, which I find to be kind of, a refreshing, I've been in the very biggest of the big. And believe me, they have some advantages. Technology budgets are bigger. They have scale. They have all that kind of stuff. But when you go to a loan officer on the street and talk about what does that do for you, there's a lot of them that it doesn't do anything other than provide frustration. So boutique versus big. Boutique means you can get answers to your questions. You don't have to send your question to an anonymous email inbox or get a ticket and have 48 hours before your ticket gets addressed. So there is a large population of LOs that have ended up in large shops, not by their choosing, but because of the M&A and the consolidation and all this, that these guys end up in shops. And so I think selling that sort of nimbleness and the ability to get stuff done is an attractive thing. I'd say also, don't be afraid to evolve as an organization. Assurance was a broker, then became a banker. Now we have a $2.5 billion servicing portfolio. And although we're a retail shop, we recently launched into and this is applicable to this room, a channel where we're basically doing the fulfillment for smaller banks that don't have scale. So a bank that doesn't want to get out of mortgage origination, keep your loan officers, give us the loan after you've taken that app. We'll do everything for you. We're invested in the tech and the scale, and you get to keep your name on it and keep your customers. So again, I think as a broker 24 years ago, nobody would ever thought that would be something Assurance would do, but here we are. So don't be afraid to evolve your organizations.
Good point.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, I know 20 minutes goes by very quickly, so we'll keep things moving here. But thank you to the panel for your insights, and thanks everyone for joining.